And we are
Okay, so
going to screen share.
Oh,
Okay,
good morning.
just
Good
one
morning.
second, Rashma. I'm letting
Okay.
everyone in now.
Okay, sorry.
Mhm.
Can you just give me a thumbs up when we're ready?
Yeah, they're coming in now.
Okay, good morning, everyone, and welcome. Thank you for joining us today for another installment of Economic Alliance Snohomish County's Coffee Chats. This morning, we're going to be talking about the U.S. Farm Bill from field to table. For those of you joining us on Zoom, well, I guess everyone's on Zoom, just please mute yourself and maybe pop your name into the chat so we can see which organization you're with. And if you also have questions throughout the presentation, please pop your question into the chat as well, and we will try to get to them after we hear from our presenters. Today, we are welcoming a number of local experts and state experts to discuss the multi-year U.S. Farm Bill. It governs an array of agricultural and food programs, and we're going to talk about how this impacts our region in Snohomish County. We'll also take a look at the current state of agriculture and the agriculture industry for food assistance programs in Snohomish County. We have 4 wonderful guest speakers with us today who are going to share their knowledge and information with us and answer your questions. Our first guest speaker is Julia Terlinchamp. She's a special assistant to the director at the Washington Department of State for Agriculture. We have our very own Linda Neunzig, who is the county agriculture coordinator here in Snohomish County. We have Linda Lyshall, who is the executive director of the Snohomish County Conservation District. And we have Anthony Hawley, who is the executive director of the Lake Stevens Community Food Bank with us as well. Good morning to you all. So with those introductions, I would like to turn it over to Julia to kick us off and to start her presentation on agriculture and the Farm Bill. Good morning, Julia.
Yeah, I'm looking at how to screen share here. It's choose what you want to share. Sorry, we're just going to go for the entire screen and see if that works.
Okay, I'm used to using Teams myself.
Can you all see that?
We can see it.
Okay, great. So I'm Julia Terlinchamp. I am special assistant to the director of Department of Agriculture, as it was just mentioned, and that is a fancy title for just saying that I do a lot of different things on behalf of the agency and representing our communities throughout the state. I have particular focus in Western Washington, so Snohomish County is definitely one of my regions that I represent for the agency. All I'm going to do today in this particular presentation is give a very high-level overview about the Farm Bill for this particular reauthorization. So for those of you who aren't familiar, we have over 300 commodities in the state of Washington. These are our top 10 commodities. And we were just talking to Linda Neunzig. It's going to speak a little bit more to what Snohomish County specializes in. But as you can see, it's actually not that significant compared to what you might hear from other ag states like Iowa and Tennessee and so forth, where they're far more about monocrops or 1 or 2 top crops. For us, we have such an incredible diversity of our crops that does make it different, and that's all going to be related to how we look and approach the Farm Bill. So what is the Farm Bill? It is up for renewal every 5 years. It is supposed to be reauthorized by September 30th, but like all things in Congress, that is can be flexible. They are expecting, according to the Congressional Budget Office, as of just I think last week, that it could cost about $1.5 trillion over the course of 10 years. There are 12 titles that I'm going to highlight, of which ones are particularly significant to those of us in Snohomish County and Western Washington. The largest, with Anthony is going to speak most to, is nutrition, which they expect will be about 84% of the total bill cost. So it gives you a really good idea, and you can see this graph on the other side of the screen where you can see the difference of the top. I believe these are the top 6 programs of what makes up the Farm Bill. So the next largest is crop insurance, which is also a very big deal to our farmers. And when you start going down the list of what's larger, what's smaller, it's pretty significant difference compared to the other programs. So one thing I wanted to highlight is what happens if the bill isn't reauthorized. This is different, where I think sometimes you might hear that the federal government might shut down and so forth. Luckily, there actually are a lot of programs that won't shut down, but there are differences of what happens if it's not reauthorized in time. Some, though, will expire. SNAP, which is a really big deal, which is also known as you probably see the EBT signs in stores and so forth. It's a big deal for quite a few of our folks. Farm commodity support programs, conservation programs, crop insurance, those do have to be reauthorized. Others, if it doesn't get reauthorized, it just means that they can't make any changes to it. And the one thing I do really want to highlight that is important in the context of this conversation that we're going to have today is the Inflation Reduction Act that was passed last August. The reason I point that out, and we have the Conservation District on this panel today, is because there's actually quite a bit of funding for conservation programs that are traditionally included in the Farm Bill. Us at the Department of Agriculture and many of our state agencies, though, are advocating fiercely to continue additional funding for our conservation programs because they are still necessary. So it is just part of the conversation and does absolutely impact what will happen in the final Farm Bill. So I'm just going to wrap up here just for the sake of time. You're going to see that there's 12 titles here, and I can the ones that are bolded: conservation, trade, nutrition, rural development, research, extension and related matters, energy, horticulture, and crop insurance. These are the top titles that are of great importance to the Washington State Department of Agriculture. The other thing I really want to highlight is that we are working very closely with Washington State University. They are a land grant university, and a significant amount of their funding also comes from the Farm Bill that I can speak to later. And so we are working in tandem with them in Congress to make sure that we are advocating with each other to support our shared priorities. So I'm going to end there. It's very high level, and ask that if you have questions, put them in the comments, or afterwards, I'm happy to address. And just think of me as someone who probably can speak at the higher level of a lot of the random stuff that's going to be brought up today. And our other panelists are going to be able to speak to the more local Snohomish County specific questions. So thank you.
Thank you, Julia,
Okay.
very much.
Do I exit? Sorry. Stop sharing.
Okay,
There we go.
Next, we're going to be hearing from one of our local food banks. So Anthony Hawley is with the Lake Stevens Food Bank. Anthony, we were just chatting this morning about your new facility. So I'm going to turn it over to you now to make some remarks.
Yeah, thank you so much. So my name's Anthony Hawley. I'm the executive director here at the Lake Stevens Community Food Bank. As I was telling the moderators, we just opened our new facility for the last couple weeks. I've been working a lot of hours, so I'm not as prepared as I would love to be for this. But I do know a lot about the SNAP benefits. I know a lot about how it affects the local food banks. So as executive director, I'm responsible for the day-to-day operations of the food bank here. And I can't speak to the numbers as far as the other food banks. I know for us, our numbers are still crazy after COVID. They've actually gotten worse since COVID is over. And if you guys don't know, SNAP benefits actually got reduced for Washington State as of March 1st. With that, we have seen a huge rise in the number of people coming to our local food banks, or our local food bank, as well as the other local food banks. Along with that, again, I just moved, so I haven't set up my computer yet. I'm doing this on my phone. But I just did a presentation a couple weeks ago, and I pulled up all of the data across the past year of the number of people that we're serving each month. And as we all know, when gas prices rose, food also rose with that. And when that happened, our local numbers just here at the Lake Stevens Food Bank went up almost 20%. It was an astronomical number of people that were starting to come to us just because the food costs were so high. And with the Farm Bill, with supporting local farmers and growing more food, it's going to make our food a lot cheaper. With supporting SNAP benefits, it's going to reduce the strain on local food banks. It's going to allow people to access those SNAP benefits. When they got reduced in March, the average pre-March 1st, the average allotment per family was about $200. After March 1st, those benefits went down to $25. As we know, food is very expensive. $25 does not get you very much. So with that, I know me and the local food banks are really hoping that the nutrition portion of this Farm Bill does get funded.
Thank you, Anthony. Next, we're going to go on to Linda Lyshall, who's here with us today, and she's going to tell us a little bit about her work from a conservation perspective.
Perfect. Thanks so much. Good morning. Linda Lyshall, I'm the Executive Director for the Snohomish Conservation District. I'm just going to put a link in the chat here to our webpage that talks about the work we do, particularly in agriculture. The Snohomish Conservation District is a special purpose district. We are local government, non-regulatory, and we've been here since 1941. Conservation districts were born out of the Dust Bowl era. There are 3,000 across the country. There's 45 in Washington State, and we're here in Snohomish County again since 1941. And our focus really is natural resource management and environmental conservation. Our core programs is agriculture. We provide planning. We provide to help implement those. And again, because we are non-regulatory, we are often seen as a trusted source for information. If we see a problem, we're not going to regulate, we're not going to turn somebody in. We are going to help them to solve the problem. So that is what we do both through our systems and also through funding. There are many funding sources, some that come through the Farm Bill. One of them is NRCS is a wonderful funding source. They have the EQIP program and the CSP program, and we often will recommend people to those programs. We also are able to do research through the SARE program, which is the Sustainable Agriculture Research and Education Program. And right now we're doing some research on agroforestry. That's one
Linda,
of our.
Just to let you know, your voice is going in and out a little.
I apologize.
It's okay.
Is there anything you want me to repeat?
No, that's okay. That's much better though, just for the audience. Thank
Okay,
you.
good. Sorry, sometimes my microphone's a little bit funny. Another thing that we've done recently, or a couple of years ago, 3 years ago, I guess, it was the publication of the Agricultural Resilience Plan for Snohomish County. And this was done in partnership with many of our farmers and local experts. We work with the Sustainable Land Strategy. So in Snohomish County, that's really focusing on farm, fish, and flood, and how we can implement best management practices that really are multi-benefit, that help the agriculture, that reduce flood risk, and that help to recover salmon. So we're always working with our partners at the county and state agencies to help implement these types of projects that really benefit our producers here in Snohomish County. And we also work on forestry. So we have 2 foresters on staff, and we do forest management plans. We also provide technical assistance, and we've been starting to work in the urban context for forestry, and we're actually just made the application through USDA for a large grant to really help us focus on more on urban forestry and bringing more trees back into. We do have, as I said, we provide farm planning services. We have 4 certified farm planners on staff and provide services to all types of farming activities in the county. And again, much of this is funded through the Farm Bill. I'll stop there and answer questions later after Linda goes.
Okay. Thank you, Linda, very much. Now I'm going to turn it over to Linda Neunzig to make some remarks and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you do at the county related to agriculture and the Farm Bill.
Good morning. Do we have the PowerPoint? There we go. We're getting there.
And while that's popping up on screen, just a reminder to everyone, if you don't mind popping any questions that you might have into the chat, now would be a good time. And we will take a look at incorporating those when we get to the Q&A section. There we go.
Okay, there we go. So agriculture in Snohomish County. Go ahead and go to the next slide. Our program in Snohomish County, the Agriculture Office, is an office of 1, but we are very mighty. We get a lot of stuff done. I was appointed to this position 16 years ago. We're working on year 17 now, I guess. I was hired because I'm a farmer. It's not because I'm an expert at policy. It's not because I'm an expert at economic development. It's because I'm a farmer and the relationship that I have with the agricultural community. So it's a little bit different than a lot of positions that you all are in or that are at the county in general. I am the sector lead for agriculture, forest products, and fisheries. Next. Next, there we go. It's a very diverse position, let me tell you. This will show you a little bit. So agriculture in Snohomish County is one of the largest sectors in the county, which most of you probably did not know, but we're a growing industry. So the farm gate value, which is assessed every 5 years in the farm census, the ag census doesn't come out very often. Once it's sent out to the farmers, it takes about a year to get everything back and tallied. So our farm gate value shows how we are increasing in so many ways. So we went from 139.4 million in the 2012 census to 157.5 million in the 17 census. We're all taking our census right now, so we should hopefully have the new information the first of next year. But it's not just the farm gate value that increased. Our cropland increased from 29,000 to 33,578 acres in that 5 years, which is really tough because there's so much development pressure on our ag land. This is exciting. The number of beginning farmers that came to Snohomish County increased by 31% in that 5 years, which is above the state average. The number of farms also increased. It took a big jump from 1438 to 1558. The main thing to remember with all of these things is the evolution of our farms. Our farms are going from small dairies that were not economically viable because they were small to a more diverse agricultural scene. We're doing a lot more things, all of this being driven by demand. Next, please. Here's a quick snapshot of what our ag land looks like. There are designated areas zoned for agriculture. You can do agriculture outside of that, but this is the land that's currently designated. And each color has a specific crop that's being grown on it. You'll see the largest is the yellow, and that is forage. Next slide. Everything that I do is farmers first. They are the ones that guide me in what needs to be done in Snohomish County. We've gone out to them multiple times and said, okay, what do you need to be economically viable? How can we help you to do what it is that you do? And that is a huge window of opportunity for us. Next, please. There we go. Policy is a big piece of what I do. So everything from hosting delegations that come into town to being a member of the State Food Policy Forum, farmland preservation, and advocating for the funding that goes to it in many different areas. So yes, it's the farmland preservation funding that comes down from the federal level. It's also from the state level, and it's from the county level. Oftentimes it takes multiple different entities putting in funding to do one project. We have a agriculture advisory board. I also staff that. And what that does is it advises the county council and the county executive on policy, but it's also very proactive. The sustainable land strategy, I think Linda already talked about that, so you've got that as well. And then we host a large number of foreign delegations that come into Snohomish County. Next, please. Private business development. When somebody wants to come to Snohomish County, whether it is a small farmer looking for land to begin their own farm, or it's a processing. I think you guys all heard from Mill that makes the composters. I think you had them as a speaker not too long ago at one of your larger events. They were going to site in King County. They were looking at the Soto area, and they had reached out to me for some, business assistance and connecting them up with Julia's office and different things like that. But we were able to say, hey, we want you to come to Snohomish County. We want you here. We are going to give you the support that you need. We are going to be here for you. We are going to help you in every way that we can. So we were able to bring them to Snohomish County to set up here and still provide a lot of assistance to them today, as does Julia's office. Next, please. Some of you may have heard of Nourishing Neighborhoods. This is a role that we played during the pandemic. We knew that there was an immediate demand for food. It was a scary demand for food, whether it was for school districts that had free and reduced lunch that no longer could have kids come in and eat, to changing around the entire way that they serve food so that there were grab and goes ready to go for them. It was getting immediate food to the food banks. It was a lot of different things. But one of the things that we noticed was that families were not able to get out and get to the food bank, or they were afraid to go. So how do we make sure they have food? On the other hand, I had farmers contacting me, a lot of farmers saying, what do we do? Do we plant? Do we not plant? We don't know what to do. Tell us what to do. Well, that's a really scary position to be in if you're me, to tell a farmer to plant or not plant, not knowing what a month from now is going to be, or 6 months from now, and making sure that if I say, okay, plant, it's going to be okay, that I had someplace for that produce to go. So what we did is we formed the Nourishing Neighborhoods program for emergency assistance, where we used COVID funding and we purchased product directly from our farmers and put together what we would call a CSA box, where we put together a box of everything that family would need for 2 weeks of fresh produce. We then identified the apartment complexes with the highest need for food. They were in a food desert. They had high unemployment. They had people that couldn't get out. So we took a box for every single household in that apartment complex and handed them out for free. We picked all of the apartment complexes in different areas within the county that were struggling the most and provided free food for them. The response to that was amazing. It was, are you sure I don't have to pay for this? Or no, thank you, I can't afford one right now. To no, it is free, please take it. And the gratitude that the families had was amazing. And yet we still were able to secure our farmers and make sure they could survive throughout the pandemic. And we've done this for a couple of years now. Next, please. The Darrington Wood Innovation Center. Here we've used some Farm Bill money as well as other funds like CURB to put together the Darrington Wood Innovation Center. And what we've done is we've created a site for different companies that do wood products to come in and site together. Next, please. The Snohomish County Food and Farming Center. Some of you may have heard about this in the last year. It's gotten a fair amount of publicity. 3 things that farmers have identified that they need to have to survive: processing for fresh local farm food, aggregation and distribution, so they're not all out on the road at the same time, a commercial kitchen to make value-added products that they can sell year-round, not during just the short window that is the growing season, and sell them for a higher amount of money than they would the fresh product. The third component being a year-round indoor farmers market, which will allow them to sell all year long, and it keeps their land in production for a longer period of time. And all those value-added products right there in the year-round market. We've been very successful with funding to be able to put this in place. So we are already well down the road. We've received funding to move forward. We've got just shy of $8 million that we're working with right now. We are getting ready to go out for progressive design build construction. We already have a owner's rep on board, so we're moving well down that road. So it's exciting to see something like this actually coming to fruition. Next, please. Focus on Farming. That's a conference that we are in our 18th year this year. It has a very large following. It is purely educational, and it's bringing our farmers together to get the latest information that they need to grow, what they need business-wise to help with what are the latest rules and regulations, how can they do their job better, succession planning, but it's also what are the latest and greatest crops, how can we do things more efficiently. It's been a fantastic conference. It surprises me that we've gone on for so many years, but the farmers attend, they want it to keep going, they find value in it. So it's getting to where it's hard to find nationally known keynote speakers because we've had them all, but we're still finding a few here and there. Next, please. Centennial Farm Program. This is where we honor a farm family that has been in production for over 100 years, the same family on the same land. I think the important thing to note on this is that we still have those families. Even though we see our farmland going away, we still have families that continue to farm every day. The most important thing for me when I do this project every year, and you can see it at the Evergreen State Fair, is the next generation finally understanding how important the farm is. They may have been going off in a different direction, but when they see where this family came from and they see the importance of this, they get excited about what their family's built. And I've seen it change to where, well, I want to be a part of the family. I think I'll be, staying here instead of going off and working someplace else. Next, please. Farmland preservation. If we don't have our farmland, we do not have food security. It's that simple. So anything and everything that we can do to save our farmland, we have to do. The other thing that is really important is that we make it easier for farmers to save their land. We've got a project right now going on, and it was started during COVID, which is a high-tech egg program. And how do we do more with less labor? And it's technology that I didn't even know existed. So it's really exciting. everything from autonomous tractors to robotics that can go out and, bring crops back in for you. You tell it where to go. It's called the burrow. It goes out, you load it up, it goes back, hauls everything back, to mowing for you so that you don't have to have a person on there to mow. We can put equipment on it that will go through and it will do a soil analysis all the way through your soil of whether you're doing rows on a orchard or you're mapping an entire 40-acre field. You don't have to be doing it. You send that autonomous robot out there and it does it all for you. And it sends all the information back to you so that you are then applying your nutrients only where they're needed, saving the farmer money and buying stuff they don't need to have and saving on labor. Next, please. So that's my presentation. I think that the most important things that we need to remember around the Farm Bill and that truly affect our farmers. And there's a lot of things that don't affect our farmers. So when you see the big picture, there's things like the soybean amendment. Is that going to affect us? No. Milk support prices, that's going to affect us. Country of origin labeling. We want to know that our meats are being sold just as USA production. We don't want meat coming in from another country that barely lived here with a USA label on it. Exporting is big. We don't think about exporting so much in Snohomish County, but we do export. We export wheat. We have a lot of milk that's exported. We have a lot of eggs that are exported. We have livestock that's exported. Our small farmers need support. A lot of the large commodity gets funding that often our small farmers don't get. There's 2 grant programs that are important to our farmers, which are the Value Added Producers Grant and the local agricultural marketing program grant. Those are very important ones that can always use more funding. Farm worker housing. We now have farms that are saying, hey, we need farm worker housing on our land. There needs to be, a better way of doing it and funding to do it. Immigration is a huge issue for our farmers. And the crop disaster programs, which all of our farmers seem to use them at one time or another, whether it's flooding, whether it's drought. But one thing that is new now is smoke. Smoke affects production. It blocks sunlight, which hampers production. And that's not something that's been included. So we need to now include that in there as well. So I talked really fast. Any questions, just let me know.
Thank you, Linda, and thank you to all of our presenters for highlighting the importance of agriculture. Linda, you touched on a couple of key programs of importance to Snohomish County. I just wanted to see if we could tie that back to the U.S. Farm Bill and whether you would like to highlight any other specific initiatives or programs in the Farm Bill that have been particularly beneficial for our farmers in Snohomish County, or and then the second part of that question is related to conservation, which maybe would go to Linda Lyshall, in terms of programs that have contributed to sustainable agricultural practices.
Sure. The dairy support prices, what they do is they help to keep the dollar amount that milk is sold for steadier. The difficult thing is it's a nationwide number, right? Our cost of production, no matter what it is, in Snohomish County is going to be higher. Our land is higher. Our inputs are higher. Even though we have incredibly productive soil, some of the best in the world, it's still expensive to farm. We cannot compete with Iowa or Wisconsin on things like dairy production. So that is a really important one for us. The other ones right here would be the 2 grants I was talking about, the Value Added Producers Grant and the local market grant for marketing. Those 2 are really big. And then farmland preservation, that's got to be a really high point there too.
Thank you, Linda. Linda Lyshall, did you want to add anything on conservation?
Well, yeah, the programs I mentioned earlier, the NRCS programs, there's the Conservation Stewardship Program and Environmental Quality Incentive Program, and both of those help to fund from Farm Bill funding, help to fund practices on farmers' land that really help. They're focused on environmental conservation and farm productivity, so they're very helpful for the farmers. We also fund through our state conservation practices. So, for example, Work Urban Dairy has received quite a bit of funding from various sources to really improve their operations out there, their manure management, and different practices that help them to really manage their operations, improve their productivity, and reduce the any water contamination. So we're really helping them to operate their business in a more sustainable way.
Thank you, Linda. Julia, looks like you want to jump in.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Linda. I don't know if I can. I don't know if it's me. I can't fully hear you, but I believe that when you were talking about NRCS funding, I just wanted to make one point that, especially because I'm from the state, so I have to do this, but that the federal funding is really critical in many ways, but the state, the way that we allocate quite a few of our resources is to complement that federal funding. So for example, with NRCS, which stands for Natural Resource Conservation Service, they have a whole range of programs, and that includes technical assistance, facilitating organic and urban agricultural production, supporting small farms, food systems, so forth. And then the way that the state looks at the program funding which is passed down to the local level, is that we look at ways to complement that kind of work. So I just wanted to highlight that at the state, we have to be very attentive to understanding what programs are passed federally, so we can see where those gaps are and being able to support it that way.
Thank you, Julia. I think one of the things we heard here is we heard about the diverse crops and the diverse agricultural landscape across Snohomish County and across the state. But in Snohomish County in particular, we have a diverse landscape, including small scale farms and specialty crops. How does the Farm Bill recognize and support the unique needs of these particular farmers? I don't know if Linda Neunzig, you want to take a stab at that one, or if someone else might be more qualified.
With our small farmers, it can be difficult because oftentimes they don't meet the requirements. So that makes it tough. It really does. There is an organics program, and Julia, you might know more about the organics program than I do. And Julia also brought up specialty crops. That is a really important one. Washington State sits third in specialty crops, and pretty much we will always sit third because California and Florida are way ahead of us and everybody else is way below us. The Farm Bill, they allocate a set amount to each state, and then our farmers are allowed to apply for the grants. And those grants are one that a farmer can simply apply for. It's not a grants.gov. It's not something that will require a grant writer to come in and do it. And it can be used right on farm. It's really good. It's for starting new farms. You can apply for anything. But even through the Farm Bill programs like, the hoop houses and applying for a grant to do hoop houses, that's big on farms. So there's a lot of things that do apply to our small farmers.
Linda, just to clarify, because there's a few programs that have the word specialty crops in it. I believe you're talking about the specialty crop block grant,
Yep.
which is run through my agency, the Department of Agriculture. It's federally funded, but we have actually the person who leads it has been there for about 30 years, so incredibly experienced. And I've been on the review panel for those, and they're the coolest projects I've ever seen, and they really run the gamut. And so that program started in 2006, and it's funded more than $953 million for 11,331 projects. Since the last Farm Bill passed, we've gotten $9 million just for Washington State alone. and 32 projects funded, and that includes everything from, you know, apples, potatoes, cherries. I read a really cool one that was granted about bee pollination. That's a huge issue, and also can be really interesting because it's not just those WSU does apply for a lot of them, to be clear, but as Linda mentioned, there's quite a few small farms or partnerships, local partnerships. Organizations like the Economic Alliance of Snohomish County can partner with maybe a few dairy farms and look more about anaerobic digesters and how a new covering for the anaerobic digester could improve, you know, reduce methane gas release and that kind of thing. So there's a lot of different ways to explore. The other specialty crop program, which is done through the USDA's Specialty Crop Research Initiative that I can speak to later if that's of interest. That is up to $10 million. And you do have larger partnerships and organizations applying for that. And definitely encourage you to talk to your members of Congress about that. Kim Schreier in particular, Congresswoman Schreier, has taken lead along with a number of other bipartisan support in our congressional delegation for waiving the match, meaning some of these federal grants, not specialty crop block grant through us, but some of the big ones like the SCRI require you to match whatever you get from the federal government. That's a huge lift, especially for our small farms. And so there's been a lot of advocacy here in Washington State to try to remove that kind of barrier.
Okay, thank you, Julia. So I'm not sure if everyone on this coffee chat will be fully familiar with some of the terms that you've used. Can you just quickly explain what is a specialty crop?
Linda, why don't you do that one?
Okay.
Or either Linda.
Me?
Yeah.
Sure.
Oh, gosh, now I gotta try and remember exactly what the
Just to give us a
what
quick
the
sense.
threshold is. It's anything that's not a commodity crop, basically. So your commodity crops, your corn, wheat, soybean, those are commodity crops. Dairy's a commodity crop. So anything that's not a commodity crop qualifies as a specialty crop, with the exception of tree fruit. Does that all sound right, Julia? I think I got it all.
I just put something from the Farm Bill
Oh, there you go.
as a definition. So yeah, and again, what makes us unique is it's not wheat, it's not soy, it's not sugar, it's not any of the really big guys. And so what happens in the Farm Bill, actually another good example, I was at a big national meeting and I was so frustrated because there's billions of dollars in the USDA Climate Smart Commodities program, and we qualified for some, but only along with about 29 other states, like for potatoes and dairy. And it's because it was all geared towards the big commodities and not our specialty crops. And so we are often the ones, and imagine, look at California, they have everything. So we're the little guys for sure. And so if you even look at the number of our small farms, it's huge compared to some of these other ag states where they're mostly dominated by big ag. We are not big ag. And so it actually makes us really unique.
Thank you. So with that, I mean, we can obviously, oh, sorry, Linda Neunzig, did you want to add something to that? I see your hand up.
I did, and I just want to touch on what Julia brought up about our state delegations that are our federal delegations that are working on Farm Bill on our behalf. And it's not just Julia and me and Linda working on this, or Anthony. They have set up a number of outreach with meetings with our farmers. Their roundtables, we've already done, I think, 4 of them at least, where Schreier and Del Bene have been the ones that have been doing it. And I think we've done one with Larson. And they bring all the farmers together and do a roundtable. They do an explanation of, this is where the Farm Bill is right now. This is what we are expecting. And then the farmers throw in anything and everything that affects them and what they want to see changed, or what they want to see stay in the Farm Bill, or what they want increased funding for and how it affects them. that allows our members of Congress to be able to go forward and help and say, this is what my counties need. This is what our farmers need to have. And so we actually have people there advocating for our farmers, which has been a huge help.
Thank you, Linda, for highlighting the importance of advocacy. I just wanted to add that EASC was recently on our DC fly-in in May, and we brought together a delegation to also help advocate for the importance of the Farm Bill for our community to our congressional delegation, including Representative Schreier. And so it is really important that everybody make their voice heard, including from an economic development perspective, given the importance of farming to our region. I just want to turn to the SNAP program related to the Farm Bill because we're coming to the end of our time shortly. So it's one of the big programs under the Farm Bill. It helps prevent hunger amongst the most vulnerable populations and encourages the purchases of healthy fruits and vegetables. We've heard from Anthony about, the decrease in benefits to families going from $200 to $25. I believe you highlighted, Anthony. So nationally, SNAP participation is the highest in rural areas and small towns. I don't know if this is a question directed to you, Anthony, and maybe others want to jump in. Can you talk a little bit about how the SNAP program is being utilized in Snohomish County and why it's important for us? If you were to advocate for something, how can we come together to help get the messages across for our local food banks and the communities that are using them?
Yeah, so I don't know about locally the exact percentages. I know that nationally about 71, I believe it's 71% are families with children. So it does show that, and it's a lot of them are working families as well that just don't make enough. And especially with our high cost of living here in Snohomish County, it's difficult times for a lot of people. Specifically in Snohomish County, though, one of the ways that program is being utilized is through a lot of our farmers markets. I know for sure Lake Stevens and the person that runs the Lake Stevens farmers market also runs a couple other local ones as well. And they actually have a SNAP match up to $25. So not only is it allowing the person or family to double their money if they go to a farmer's market, but it's also helping support those local farmers. And most of them are probably smaller farmers as well. So it's kind of twofold where it's helping the family, but it's also helping our local economy.
Thank you, Anthony.
I'm just putting facts or some info about Washington State in the chat just to save some time. So there's some statistics there for Washington State.
And Linda, you highlighted one of the great programs that the county put in place during COVID in terms of getting food directly to people. Is that program still continuing?
I handed it over after I went back to my day job, my regular job, and I believe it is still going to some extent. We have farmers that are still selling, but what really came out of it was making the connection between our farmers and the food banks. Oftentimes there wasn't that connection. So we have farmers that still today are producing products specifically for the farmers markets and selling it to the farmers market, not the farmers market, to the food banks directly. And that has been something that didn't exist before. They now know each other. It's really easy to say, oh, look, there's farmers, we don't know how to get that food, but it took that connection of being able to put the two together and to really highlight the importance of buying directly from our farmers, how fresh the product is, how long it will last when they have it. And to me, it's very gratifying to see that those relationships still exist and that it's still happening. And VOA has been phenomenal about supporting our local farmers.
Thank you, Linda. The other Linda, jump in.
This is on a different topic. I just wanted to highlight a program we haven't talked about yet. So Julia, are you on the same topic?
Yeah, just really quickly, the state still does continue that program that you mentioned. I actually am lead for it for the time being, while a colleague is out for a few months. So we just do understand how the state works. We count entirely on our local partners who actually know our community the best. And so we do have actually remaining COVID funds that we are using. Those are going out very, very shortly. Actually, we're signing the contracts right now. And so we're continuing that program. And then we have quite a significant amount more funding in this next biennium that starts this summer. And so we'll have additional support in that fashion. And there's a few other federal programs that we also allocate that are very similar, including where we give it directly to farms to help grow produce for our food banks.
So I just wanted to highlight the Rural Energy for America program. This is also funded through the Farm Bill through USDA, and we are recipient of that grant program. And we help farmers and rural businesses to apply for grants for renewable energy, so primarily solar. This has been a really successful program. We've been running for about 4 years now, and we just just got another grant to continue it for another couple of years. The farmers and rural businesses can get up to 50% back on the cost of installation of solar panels, energy conservation measures, and other renewable types of projects. So it's a really great program.
Thank you, Linda. I just want to turn to research and innovation and the role that it plays in advancing agricultural practices. We heard about some innovative technologies, I think, and Linda highlighted some of those advancements. Could you, and I'll just open this to anyone on the panel who wants to answer this. Could you discuss how the Farm Bill supports research development efforts in Snohomish County? Are there any particular notable breakthroughs or advancements that you would like to highlight, either maybe at the state level or even here in Snohomish County? So Linda, go ahead. I see you unmuted yourself.
Washington State University, the research station in Mount Vernon, is where most of it's done. And they're the ones that apply for the larger grants. Everything from, they do a lot of stuff around pests. So potatoes, spinach seed, it's like 98%, 99% of the spinach seed in the world comes from Skagit and Snohomish County. I have weird facts in my head. I apologize. There's a lot of them there. But the importance of making sure that those crops are safe, we rely on WSU to do that for us locally. The same thing with potatoes. Potatoes have huge problems with pests. We grow a lot of potatoes in Snohomish County. You can only grow potatoes in the same ground 1 year out of 8. So you may have potatoes here today. You're not going to have potatoes in that piece of ground for 8 years. The same scenario with cabbage seed. We grow a lot of cabbage seed. And so being able to have the best research there is incredibly important. A lot of tree fruit stuff, a lot of stuff around raspberries. We grow a fair amount of raspberries here. Spotted wing Drosophila, probably said it wrong, is a huge pest that we have. So having the information from them is really what we need. So it's a huge piece for Snohomish County, but not directly funded to Snohomish County.
And in general, many of our programs might benefit ag statewide. So there's a lot about pests, invasive species, abiotic stressors like frost, heat, wildfire smoke. That is something that is definitely getting a lot of attention. And as Linda mentioned, WSU is critical in this partnership for supporting our agricultural community, and which is why they're actually the lead for the state of Washington in advocating for the Farm Bill for our state, alongside a number of our state agencies as we come in to highlight the areas where they don't specialize in. And I also wanted to note technical assistance for specialty crops is also really important across the sector. And that, again, Farm Bill includes quite a few of these programs. And the last thing I just wanted to highlight as an awareness is Congress passed quite a few bills last year, like the IRA, like the CHIPS Act, and there's a lot of funding in there for innovation and research. And something cool that happened in this last legislature is that the Department of Commerce received $5 million, not very much money, but what it does is it helps local partnerships, again, EASC, the communities, like the organizations. I see who you all are on this, City of Snohomish, that kind of thing. You can partner together and you can apply to Department of Commerce to be able to get funding. And this is the best part, to get someone who's an expert in grant writing, because that's something that has all been identified. In order to get that federal funds, unless you are a higher education place like WSU or PNNL or what have you, it is really, really hard to compete nationally. And so this is supposed to give a leg up to our local partnerships to be able to compete at that level with other folks. So something just to be aware of, that we are tracking, that there's a whole range of programs that are coming out of the federal government and they're starting to come online soon, and that we need, as a state as small as we are, to be able to find ways to leverage what resources we have locally. And we have strong partnerships. So that's something that is aware, but we need help too. So please be on the lookout for that. And I'm sure EASC will get an email with more information that they can distribute to everyone.
Thank you for highlighting that, Julia, and we're happy to distribute that.
I do have one more comment on research, if you'd like, and that is we are doing research on agroforestry. Agroforestry is really integrating perennial trees and shrubs into agricultural systems and helping to diversify income for farmers. And that we have received funding through the Farm Bill to do that. Continuing that.
Thank you, Linda. So I feel like we could do a second coffee chat on the Farm Bill because and agriculture, because there's a lot of questions we didn't get to, but we do have to wrap up our time together. I want to thank you all for being here with us today, but I also wanted to give you all an opportunity to just leave us with any final thoughts on how we can continue to help advocate for the Farm Bill, or one thing that you want us to take away from this coffee chat related to agriculture or the importance of the Farm Bill. Anthony, maybe we can start with you. You're on mute. Yeah.
On mute. I think the best way is just to contact your local leaders, our congressman, or whoever your district representative or senator is a great way, and just putting that bug in their ear that we have a lot of support for this, for our community and economy.
Thank you, Anthony. Linda? Neunzig?
It's really simple. It's two things. Preserve our farmland. If we don't have our farmland, we don't have anything. We saw it through COVID. When trucks stopped coming up and down the road, when the grocery store shelves are empty, we need our farmers, and we need them now. And if they can't make a living farming, they're gone. If they don't have farmland to farm on, they are gone. We need to always keep that top of mind. And the number one thing that you all can do in addition to that is buy local. Go to your farmer's market. When you're at the grocery store and you buy milk, where did that milk come from? Is it from Dairy Gold? Then you're local. Is it direct from the farm? Then you're local. Buy local at the grocery store, buy local whenever you can. And that's what supports our agricultural community. When you see a bill come through or something that you can advocate for around ag, do it. If you're not sure, call one of us and we would be happy to help you.
Julia?
I would just say that the reason why I decided to even be in this sector is because it's one of the last areas of policy that is still bipartisan. And it's really refreshing that even in DC, when we've come together with all the other state departments of agriculture, that we're all advocating as one. It's actually really incredible to see, whether you're in Florida or Tennessee or Texas, we are almost all in sync in these priorities, whether it's nutrition or trade support or technical assistance and research and innovation. So keep that in mind, that I think sometimes we feel like our voices aren't heard because of certain political positions. That's not the case when it comes to this farm bill. It really does. It's about food security, national security, and it's pretty amazing. The last thing I want to note is that Snohomish County has some really incredible assets. I saw Kirk Pearson was on here before. You have some powerhouses who know the system really, really well. You should lean on them and help them guide you and how you can help best advocate for this farm bill. But please don't keep your voice to yourself. Definitely speak out and make sure that your delegation hears from you.
And Linda Lyshall?
Thank you. I'll be quick. I know we're at the end of time. So I would just say that, we are here to help. We work, we really appreciate the partnerships we have with our state and local agencies. And if you are a farmer and you need assistance, please contact us. If you know of a farmer that needs assistance, tell them to contact us. We can help them with technical and financial assistance. Direct them to programs that can support them.
Thank you. So before we wrap up, I just wanted to highlight a couple of programs that EASC has coming up. On Thursday, June 29th, we are collaborating with the Association of Washington Business and the Washington Roundtable to host a session on Washington in the Making 2040. So it is a hybrid option, and we would like to encourage many of you to please participate in this discussion. It is on the future of Washington, and this is another opportunity to make your voice heard for Snohomish County. The second event I just want to quickly highlight is that on Tuesday, July 11th, we will be hosting with the Port of Everett at the New Muse Whiskey and Coffee. New Muse Whiskey and Coffee inside the historic Weyhauser building on the Everett waterfront, the State of the Port report for 2023. So please join us for that as well. With that, please take your coffee mug. Join me in saying cheers to having a wonderful week. Please buy local, support your local food banks, and most of all, make your voice heard on this current version of the U.S. Farm Bill as it goes forward for reauthorization. If you're not sure who to reach out to at the federal level, please feel free to send us a quick message and we will be happy to share the contact information for the federal delegation. Have a wonderful day. Cheers.
Thank you. Take care.
Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you all so much. You were great.
Thank you for including us. We appreciate it.
Thank you for being with us, Linda. I think we lost the rest of our speakers.
I think so. That was fun, you guys. Thank you.
Thank
Okay.
you, Linda.
You're a wealth of knowledge, Linda, so thank you.
Oh, thank you. I probably talked too much.
No, you made it local for people and real, so that's wonderful.
Okay.